Hello everyone, and welcome back to our English literature course. We are approaching the end of the semester, so probably 3-4 more classes to go. We're speaking about the Victorian age, and last time we finished with two important names in the literature of the Victorian age, Charles Dickens and Thomas Hardy. Now, when we speak about the Victorian novelists, we always also speak about female novelists, women who were also writing novels at that time. And it's again very interesting if you follow the development of English literature, how in Old English we had basically no women, not even generally as characters in the texts, in the poems. They were playing minimal roles. And then in the Middle English, we had more and more women, but generally as objects of desire, remember? And then women started to appear more, despite the fact that in real life, women, in a way, it's wrong to say they didn't write or they couldn't write. They were not allowed to write. They were in a society that was training them to be at home, to stay at home, to take care of the kitchen, to make sandwiches, to be barefoot, pregnant, and all the time at home. They were not allowed to go out more or less. For example, during the time of Shakespeare, women were not allowed to perform on stage, and men would be stealing the jobs. Okay, so basically, Aphra Behn is the first major real female writer, and that's why Virginia Woolf praises her a lot and says all the women around the world should put roses around her grave, because what she did is significant for women in England and around the world. So she was speaking for women. She was empowering women. She was showing women, in a way, how to do it, and that they can do it. They can write, and they can write better than men. And then we moved to see Mary Vance, Mary Manley, and those fantastic female women. And now we have women who can be published, and people were looking forward to reading their stuff. But as a matter of fact, I always like to show the role of women in fiction. So these are real women, real human beings with feelings and emotions and everything and lives. But in fact, fiction played a major role in the development and empowerment of women. And it still plays this significant role. And here for us, for example, like the Palestinians as occupied, as colonized, as oppressed society, we can always use fiction as a tool of resistance, as a tool of empowerment, to speak out, to reach out to others, to speak to truth, to power, as they say. So fiction played an amazing role, fiction which is imaginative writing, in empowering, changing the reality of men. And I can go as far as the nun and the wife of Bath in Geoffrey Chaucer. Chaucer, the woman in Chaucer was powerful, was different. She was untraditional. She wasn't, the woman who was following the rules of the community. She wanted to challenge these roles. And even Portia, like centuries later in Shakespeare, can be a fantastic example for women. But what Portia did is in so many ways like what women do now in the 20th century, because at that time women were not allowed to be on stage, let alone to go to university and be lawyers. So what Portia did is she disguised as a man, changed her outfit, put a fake mustache, a fake beard, probably a fake wig, and now, whoops, all of a sudden, she's a lawyer, and she's defeating the most cunning character, Shylock. She's defeating him, tricking everyone in the court, showing us that all these man-made rules of the society that say women can't do this and can't do that and should be doing that, they're fake, they're fabricated, they can be challenged and they can be broken. So we move to the Victorian age here, and we see how women were pushing the barriers like even further and further. Doesn't mean women don't have challenges, and people were not, in a way or another, hindering women's progress and writing. Even today, and I mentioned this before, when we spoke about J.K. Rowling, we said she used her first initials, J.K. Rowling. Her name is Joanne, and I usually say Joanne Khamis Rowling, my joke. Thank you for laughing, 1 mark for you. So J.K. Rowling wanted to be published, she was looking for a publisher, and then they came up to the agreement that, wait a minute, maybe if we publish under your real name, Joanne, many people will not be willing to buy a book for a woman to read. Although some of the most famous poets and novelists in the 20th century, 21st century are women. But again, the times are changing. So they agreed to go for J.K. Rowling, and we'll see this happening here. Women who couldn't be, couldn't find the chance to be published would change their name, and women who wanted to reach to greater audiences, to break the prejudice, were also using pen names and fake names, as we are going to see. So we'll speak about the three Bronte sisters, the Brontes, the three sisters, and we'll speak about George Eliot. Again, I say women writers, George Eliot, because George Eliot is a woman. She used the pen name of a man, George Eliot, for several reasons related to how women were treated. So the three Bronte sisters, we'll take one text from each. Number one, Charlotte. Her most successful book is Jane Eyre. Don't confuse Jane Eyre with the real Jane Austen. Jane Austen is a romantic Victorian figure, Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility, and Jane Eyre is Charlotte Bronte's most famous novel. In this novel, again, we'll see how these women generally write about women to empower women. And they are different. In the past, for I think in Henry Fielding and Richardson, they were writing how women are always the victims of female violence. Women always die. Women always get raped. Women always, But here women have their own voice. They can speak up, they can challenge authority, and they can end up victorious and triumphant and happy. So this is one of the most famous novels about a woman, Jane Eyre. Again, try to read some of these in the summer break. If you can't, at least watch the movie. Now Jane starts as parentless. She's a poor child like Oliver, but she doesn't end up in a way like Oliver, because here Bronte treats her as a woman, as independent, as strong, because in the book Oliver is always a tool of fate. He's like a feather being blown here and there by the wind. But this woman, she creates her own destiny, her own life, and her own future, bringing about a happy ending. So despite all the sufferings, she ends up triumphant, independent, and a strong woman. So when she meets Mr. Rochester, who has locked up his wife in the attic, and it's interesting when the man doesn't like his wife, he just says she's crazy. Okay, so this is something here. This man locks his wife in the attic somewhere up in the house, and claims that she is mad. Maybe she is mad, but that's not my issue here. Maybe you read that and see how is she being is the truth being told about her? Is he mad? If she's mad, why is she mad? What is madness, right? What is madness? Is madness what you don't like? If I do something that you don't like about me, you're going to say that's insane, that's mad. So the novel examines the many circumstances, many issues surrounding the life of women at that time. At the end of the novel, like I said, Jane herself, the woman, is in control, is in command. Remember when I said women writers usually use techniques to engage the readers, to make them part of this? Here, she sticks her head out of the text of the book, and she talks to us, the readers, directly. She says, "Reader, I married him." It's not generally men would be chasing women, right? Coming after, running out of them, etc. But here the woman is in command. So, and this shows, again, a new move towards freedom and equality, that women are equal to men and they can be in a position to chase and be independent and control their own destinies and lives. Jane Eyre, really interesting read. More about Jane Eyre. So, like I said, Jane controls her own life despite the difficulties, despite the suffering, despite the problems. At the end of the text, we see her as a strong, independent woman, strong, independent woman, a strong, independent woman. And always compare this with how women are generally depicted by men, especially by 17th, 18th century authors like Richardson. Remember Pamela? Remember Clarissa? Raped and dead, raped and dead. Always victims. But this is totally different. The woman is simply independent of man. Not dependent on or upon man, independent of man. That's basically Jane Eyre. Emily Bronte, Wuthering Heights. Not sure if you're familiar with Wuthering Heights, متفعات Wuthering. I think it was turned into a cartoon, but you will always find these on YouTube as movies. So Emily is a little bit different because she's more into the psychological novel. In a way, she was one of the leaders of the psychological novel, where she gets inside the mind. And that's very beautiful and profound. Because if people believe that women can't write social novels, no, they can, and they can even write more advanced, more profound, more complex novels that get inside the mind and the brain of the character. It's a novel of passion, considered to be an early psychological example of the novel here. The central character Cathy, or characters Cathy and Heathcliff, they live out there, they are in love. The Wuthering Heights here are used in a way symbolically. Some people think that this is in a way partly a Gothic novel because it takes place among the heights of the Wuthering Heights and the mountains and the hills and the valleys there. But the wild atmosphere, the geography reflects the passionate relationship between these two people. So in a way, it is mirrored. The landscape is as wild as the relationship. Of course, the novel is very original. It's very different in the way it's written, the fact that it is a psychological novel about the more what's going on here than anything else. For example, in the narrative, it moves backward and forward, like flashback, flash forward. Keeps going on like this. We mentioned a little bit about this in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Women always wanted to create new techniques because sometimes, like, men monopolize something. Monopolize. يعني بيحتكروا, like they think this is my way. This is what men do. This is how men write. And the women were like, okay, thank you. We can find a different technique to mix and vary, to create, to experiment on the narrative technique. So the novel in events moves backward and forward in time and in and out of the mind of the characters as a psychological novel. Let's see this extract here. So again, a new world, a new view of women and their emotions. They are independent and they can express themselves clearly and passionately as they like. Let's see Cathy talking to Nellie, her housemaid, about two people. Now, we know she is married to Linton,
And she loves him.
but she loves someone else. In the past, it was a taboo. Like, oh, don't talk about this. You shouldn't. If you get married to someone, you just shut your heart and stick to this person. Look at this beautiful quote extract that changes everything about women in the English novel here. See, she says, someone read, please. Okay, read.
My love for Linton is like the foliage.
Foliage. It's like paper. Foliage is paper.
Time will change it. I'm well aware as winter changes the trees. My love for Heathcliff resembles the eternal rocks beneath. A course of little delight, but necessary Nelly. I'm Heathcliff.
This should be. So Nelly, I am Heathcliff. Yeah.
He's always in my mind as my own being.
Okay. So here we compare between the paper, the foliage, and the rocks, the binary opposites.
Yes.
Like she's comparing these two people to these two things. These are similes, remember? As and resembles. Simile. This love is fake or doesn't last. It can easily be destroyed by some wind and rain. But this is strong as the rocks themselves. If I ask you this question, what is the most important word in this extract? What is the key word?
My love.
My?
Mine.
Where's mine? There's my. and my,
At the first, the people
my love, my, and my. What are these? They are first person, and these are feeling, self, the self, generally owning something, something. Possession here, they indicate possession, my. So women in the past were properties. They were owned by men, controlled by men. Their destiny, their everything. But this is a woman in command. In my opinion, the most important word is the word own. My own being. I own him. He's mine. I can claim him like people claim their, property or something. So there is the emphasis on my. This is a strong, independent woman who can be in command, who can own men, unlike a century or 2 centuries ago when women were on. So this is, again, interesting how women are writing, how these Brontes were writing about this. The sister Anne Bronte, their youngest sister, she also wrote about women issues. So for the exam, just with taking Emily and Bronte, but it's good to know that Anne was also writing stuff about the complex relationships between men and women. So, to summarize, everyone, to summarize here, the 3 sisters faced these problems. Some people say they were reflecting their own lives because they had this difficulty, the difficult life, and they wanted to write about them, to expose them, to empower women. But some might say that women always write fiction, prefer fiction, because they create their own world where you can live as a strong. So if the society is not treating you well, you can create your own world, and this own world will become the reality. If not your reality, it will become the reality of other women, and this is how empowering works sometimes. They face these difficulties with courage and directness. Together, they changed the way the novel could present women characters. That's the most significant thing here. From now on, people, in a way, of course, we will find novels that treat women as the case in the past, but generally people were pushing forward, especially women. After the Brontes, female characters were more realistic and less idealized. So the woman is no longer an object of desire, although we'll find this all the time, but generally we will frequently find the strong, powerful, independent woman. Realistic, a woman like not a superwoman, a superhero, and not an object in the kitchen. If we have this, it's usually criticized in a way, exposed in a way or another. This is significant. It's no longer treated like, oh, come live with me and be my love, and we will all the pleasures prove, where the woman is absent and silent and she's tricked by things. So less idealized. She's a woman. She has her own faults, but she can be independent. She can survive all these difficulties and suffering. And their struggles became the subject of a great many novels. So the women are no longer minor characters or marginal characters. The book is about the woman. It doesn't mean because these are women, they didn't write about other themes. They did. Okay, but mainly they were aiming to empower. And let's see, George Eliot or Mary, again. I think we have 20 Jones and like 10 Marys, right? Mary Ann Evans. Mary Evans or George Eliot? George Eliot. Generally known as George Eliot, a.k.a. Mary Ann Evans.
Her name is known.
Sorry?
Her real name.
Yeah, not as much as George Eliot. And again, this is a woman. I think, listen, the Brontes at some time in their life, the Brontes also used fake names sometime in their life. So it's not only George Eliot. The Brontes also used fake names or pen names or initials. So they didn't want to reveal that they are. Now with George Eliot, one of the most significant, some people consider her the most significant female writer of all time. Even her book, her novel, we'll see in a bit, Middlemarch, is considered by many to be the greatest novel in the English language. Now, imagine this. You read a book, you look at the cover, and it says it's written by George Eliot, and you love it. thinking that the author is a man. If the author, if the cover says Mary Ann Evans, you're going to, I don't like reading for women. I think women can't capture the essence of feelings and emotions and the experiences. Many people say this. Women are not deep compared to men. Women can't reflect the psychology, the relationship, the depth, the passion, the fears, the concerns. Many people say this, which is wrong, of course. Imagine yourself believing in this and promoting this and saying women shouldn't be allowed to publish. All poetry and fiction by women are mediocre, mediocre, like average. And imagine yourself believing in this and holding a book that says George Orwell, reading the text, reading the novel, enjoying it, loving it very much, thinking that the author is a man. And then someone tells you, excuse me, hey, George Eliot is a woman. What? Really? I don't believe it. I can't believe it. Like, really? Because, I don't know, I loved it. You might say this and reconsider your position, like, I've been fooled all this time by the rules, by the critics who are generally men.
Yes.
Or you might say, nah, I didn't really love it. I always felt somewhere in my stomach or head or belly that this is not really excellent fine writing. But in a way, this is like, I usually like to say this is a slap on the face of those anti-feminists who look down upon women and women's achievements and women's writings and fiction. This is the thing. I love her works, really, but I love this very much about her, the fact that she used a pen name, a pseudonym of a man, and then everyone is like, see, now this is the writing we should be reading. This is the writing that all the people should be imitating this man. And then all of a sudden, surprise, surprise, I am a woman.
Breaking news.
Breaking news, yeah? It turns the whole world upside down and inside out. It shakes the foundations of what? Of the English canon. It tells us that there's something wrong with the English canon. The English canon is biased, is prejudiced against people of color, non-white, non-Europeans, outsiders in general, and women in particular. Women were kicked out not because they were not writing good stuff, but because they were women. So she's perhaps the greatest woman novelist, and she used the name George Eliot to help her with the publications and stuff. Okay? She worked as a translator, then as a fiction. Now in the book, remember I told you this about Mary Wollstonecraft something? What's her name? Mary Shelley? No, Mary Shelley. Mary Wollstonecraft something. Wollstonecraft.
Her middle name?
Her real name. Now, anyway, generally, if a woman is successful, in Arabic we say, وَرَاءَ كُلَّ رَجُلٍ عَظِيمٍ إِمْرَأَةٍ. But here the book is telling us, وَرَاءَ كُلَّ إِمْرَأَةٍ عَظِيمٍ رَجُلٍ. There is a great man behind every great woman. Sorry? Yeah, herself. A picture of herself. La? So, what I'm saying is that the book here sometimes attributes the success of so many women to men. I don't like this. It could play some particular role. For example, with Mary Shelley, her father, her mother, they are taken out. They played a greater role in her thinking and intellectuality than her husband. But she is attributed to her husband. The same here, the book says, and I took it out, but I have to show you how this book is also prejudiced in a way. I love this book. It's one of the best. But we need to be careful when we read it. So it says, there was a man who encouraged her to write, as if he didn't do so, she wouldn't be writing stuff. So I took it out. I censored it. I censored the censorship. So she worked as a translator and then as a fiction writer. And though you're studying English, it's fun that you can be these things. And if you think of yourself as a translator, a writer of fiction. Her first novel is Adam Bede. but she wrote more important works here. And her themes are generally, because, of course, she's a woman, so would usually be considered controversial. Women themes such as having a drunk husband. What's wrong with having a drunk husband? The mayor of Casterbridge, remember the mayor of Casterbridge? What did the man do? He sold his wife and daughter. He was drunk. And the book didn't say that this is a controversial book. Because the writer is a man and the critics here are men. But when a woman does this, it's controversial, it's objectionable, scandalous. Come on, for God's sakes. So I should add some sort of inverted commas here, like controversial. Who considers them controversial? Okay, so having drunk husband and being an unmarried mother, a single mother, okay? In her later novels, she writes about, of course, the society as a whole. For example, Middlemarch. And Middlemarch is a fictional city. In literature, people generally, for example, you could write a story about Gaza and you just, the events take place in Gaza or Jerusalem, the eternal capital of Palestine, right? So, or Cairo or London or New York. But some people make up names of cities for one reason or another. So they just say, these events were taking place in, I don't know, I can't make up a name of a country. Pizza, for example. This place is called Pizza, where there are 2 million people living there. Ironically, no one loves pizza, and you just keep going on stuff. Because Gaza looks like a slice of pizza in a way. So, Middlemarch is a fictional character, okay? Sorry, a fictional place that takes, like the events take place in the center somewhere in the middle of Great Britain in England. Considered by some to be the greatest novel in English language. I'm sure many of these are women. Like the novel is set somewhere in the 1832 in a fictional town in England. The themes, of course, are immense. Like they go from the changes in the voting system. Women could not write until 1928 something in England. But this woman was writing about this 100 years before, well ahead of her time. Talking about medicine, about the rail transport and the roles of women in the society. I generally give you an idea because this is the nature of the course. But sometimes I don't want to spoil the novel, to tell you what happens at the end, because I want you to go and see how things happen for yourselves. So this considers the importance of the dead hand of the past, because the past we should learn from the past, but it shouldn't be imposing its own rules and regulations, because we are advancing in time in a way or another. The heroine, of course, heroine, not cocaine, heroine. The female hero is untraditional generally. Her name is Dorothea, and finding her, she finds, of course, her own happiness and independence, like most women by women writers. Eliot's philosophy now, because basically Eliot believes in something called or her practice, her philosophy is called positivism. Positive, yes. Like you're optimistic, like the good is yet to come. Many people believe in this. Like the good, they generally focus and look at the half full of the cup rather than the half empty. Okay, the bright side of things. And many people are dark and negative, the pessimistic. They say, if this is bad, what's come is worse. There's this scene with Homer Simpson and Bart saying, this is the worst day of my life. And Homer Simpson telling him, yet, or so far, like the worst is yet to come. But she believes in this. I think she being a woman plays a major role here. Because men are always playing the role of the victim, like it's dark, it's sad, we're suffering. And they are, in a way or another, victimizing women. So this woman says, no, don't believe these women. Don't believe Hardy. It's going to be good. especially the roles of women, and women are advancing in an amazing way that they can't claim their role. So Eliot's philosophy is called positivism, meaning basically that humanity continues to move forward, to improve, to advance, to progress. Sometimes the progress is hindered, sometimes the progress is slow, but eventually
There's the progress.
there's progress, and humanity will progress, and the good is yet to come. And better stuff, better things will come eventually. Okay, so these are 4 female novelists of the Victorian age. The 3 Bronte sisters and George Eliot. Do you have any question? Any comment? Please do ask, or if you want to say something. Have you ever read some like poetry by women, novels or stuff in English or in Arabic? And how did you feel that women write differently? Do you like to know who the author is of a particular text before reading it, or what? What do you care more about? The text or the author? Which is more significant? The text. So if someone tells you, hey, this is an amazing short story or poem, you should read it. Do you say, okay, send it to me, or do you ask first and foremost about the author?
Because by knowing the author, we will know the style of the
Okay,
writing.
interesting. But also by knowing the author, you're going to limit your imagination. You limit your interpretation, because we've seen with the Sick Rose, the poem could be about so many things. One of you, or on the other group, said, the Sick Rose could be about guys on Facebook tricking women, girls like you, telling them I love you, I like you, or something, and then they cheat them, like they destroy their lives, because this is the worm, the invisible worm destroys thy life, right?
Plays with motion.
And this, of course, William Blake did not mean this. He didn't predict Facebook. But we can relate. But if you just only focus on the name of the author, his life, how he lived, was he happily married, did he have kids, whether his mother-in-law was horrible, whether his father-in-law was horrible, whether he had a job, unemployed, whether he was... Generally, what I like to do here in my classes is that while I don't do this, I rarely say he lived, he was married, he had kids, because I don't care about this. The life of the author could be interesting. There are theories that focus mainly on the life and the circumstances and the social, political circumstances and the philosophical ideas and beliefs and ideology of the author in order to understand the text. But many other theories say no. This could be interesting. It could be fun to know something about Shakespeare and his wife and his kids and everything. But the most significant thing is the text itself. There's a theory called the death of the author. Like, not let's kill all the authors. It's like when the author publishes a book, once the book is published, he or she dies. Khalas. They're no longer authors and writers.
The book lives.
They become readers. Because now the text belongs to us. And because this is not only theirs, these ideas come from so many books and stories they read and heard from here from experiences. And this is interesting because sometimes people for a long time would think that this play was written by Shakespeare. And it turns out that no, it wasn't written by Shakespeare. It was written by someone else. And also, what about texts that are anonymous? Many people think we can't understand a text unless we know the author. What about anonymous texts? What about anonymous texts? Can we understand them? Can we appreciate them? Of course, yes. And I usually do this in my classes. In one of my classes, this was one of the best experiments I did. I was teaching a poetry class, and I brought an Israeli poem by an Israeli Jewish poet, Yehuda Amichai, on Jerusalem. So I had like 40 students, and I got them 40 copies. Half of them, I told the first half that I wrote down that this is by the Israeli poet Yehuda Amichai. And it says, On Aruf al-Jabal, one of the best poems you will ever read. Really beautiful. And the other group, I didn't tell them anything. Just, this is a poem, this is a text. Read it. What do you think? So the first group, because they already know this, and because Israel is destroying our lives and occupying us and turning our lives into hell, many people didn't appreciate the text, as a beautiful artistic creation, artistic expression. And they were like, not well, he doesn't capture the essence, the depth of Jerusalem, and it's not this Palestinian poet because it's ours and everything. Interesting stuff. Very, very interesting. But the other group were more into the text itself and its beauty and its artistic value as, again, a literary creation, an artistic creation. And even, funny, some of them thought that this is written by Mahmoud Darwish, Samih al-Qasim, or even Tamim al-Barghouti, because it's a beautiful text. It describes Jerusalem in this beautiful way. So sometimes we have this prejudice. So generally, I don't like, it's good to know the author, who the author is, of course, but if you only want to understand the text by understanding the life of the author, not good. I'll post this on the Facebook group tonight. There was one author, I can't remember who he is, who said that I read the first paragraph, only the first paragraph of the novel, and then I can't tell whether this is written by a man or a woman. In a condescending way, saying that, implying that it's very easy to tell the style of women. They have a particular way. Yeah, there are differences. Of course, there are differences. For example, I know only 4 colors. I don't know many colors. But women know more. Like they know Fushi, Mushi, Nili, Batihi, Jamali, Shimami, Fagusi, like so many crazy colors. Okay? And about many other things, not about colors. Like, we're different. There are differences, but not in a bad way. Not that man is better or women are. Everyone is good in his or her own way. I think The Guardian posted 10 openings from 10 random novels that I haven't read before. And there was a quiz, can you tell if this is a man or a woman? I did the quiz and I got 7 out of 10. So I'll post the quiz and you try to see if you can tell whether the author is a man and a woman. And I want you to don't just do it hit or miss. Try to really read the extracts, the first, just very short paragraphs, and see if you can tell if the author is a man or a woman. There are differences, but the differences are not in the sense that this is better. Yeah, there are writers who are better than others, but it doesn't mean basically all men writers are better than all women writers. Thank you very much. We stop here. Next class, we're going to finish the Victorian age with Victorian poetry. Thank you very much.